Beast and crew, what's up? What's good? It's your girl Jasmine back with another video on the channel. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. So today we got Griselda on the channel today. If you don't know who she is, like myself, I did not know who she was until I seen a Netflix documentary come out. And I watched the Netflix documentary and I finally finished it. And I'm really just in shock, you know? I'm in shock because why have I never heard of her? Um, if you don't know who she is, the most I can tell you from the show is that she's this drug dealer. Well, actually, cartel. Like they say, she was like Pablo Escobar. They say Pablo was afraid of her himself, and if you know Pablo, he was a big deal too back then, and it was a whole shebang. Um, when researching and doing like reviews of this show, most people was kind of, it was kind of 50-50. Some people wasn't too happy the fact that they only had 6 episodes and they felt like her story wasn't really told, and then some people was like, this was perfect, this was amazing. So me, I'm kind of in the middle, because if some people saying like, we're missing stuff, then it kind of sucks for people like me who's new to her, and it's like, what are we missing? What did I miss? What did we miss? What was in the time frame that it wasn't shown on Netflix, right? But the other side of me is like, it was great. It was a great series to me. I think the actor who played Griselda, her name is Sophia, and to me, she did an amazing job. But this video is going to show us the what truly happened versus what was shown on Netflix, if it was a match or if it was missing some stuff. But I'm excited to get into it. I've thoroughly enjoyed the documentary on Netflix. If you have not seen it, make sure you go check it out. If you have seen it, please comment down below and let me know your thoughts on the documentary and the stuff that was shown on the Netflix documentary as well. That being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and push that notification bell so you know notification I post. That being said, let's see what was really shown on the show, if it was true or what was missing, if it was false, all the above. Let's get it.
Potential to go one of two ways. It was either going to be really good or it was going to be trash. And to be honest, it was neither. It took me by surprise. But it was more edging on the side of it being a good show, which is a positive. Starring Sofia Vergara as the godmother, Griselda Blanco, I thought it would be worth looking into just how true the Netflix show was, whilst also discussing the ending and what its deeper meaning was. So let's get into it. Here is Griselda versus the real events and the ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The comparison to the true story. So it seems as though the Netflix show did actually stick to the facts when it came to making the show, as after doing some research, many things did actually match up. One thing that the show didn't touch on was that Griselda Blanco had actually been to the United States with the intention of settling there before. Within the show, we picked up in 1978. However, around 14 years earlier, in 1964, she went to the US illegally with fake documents and a made-up name to New York with her 3 kids and her husband at the time.
Wow, and like I said, of course you need to watch the show to really relate. Because in the show, if you remember, like episode 1 or 2, when she's with her first husband, Alberto, they talked about how they did go to New York, right? But I didn't know the reason why they went to New York or how they got there. So that's pretty. I feel like that was a fact that should have been in the show. That would have been pretty interesting to know.
She managed to set up a drug operation there, which was successful. However, around 10 years later, in 1975, she was accused of federal drug charge conspiracy and faced jail time. So with that looming over her, she went back to Colombia so she could avoid being convicted. But then, only a few years later, just like we saw in the show, she went back to the US and moved the operation that she established in New York to Miami. So there were some slight differences in that opening section which weren't touched on. When it came to individuals that were in the show, such as her 4 children, they all actually existed in reality, along with Dario and Alberto, who were actually killed too. Whilst it wasn't explicitly shown in the show who was behind the killing of Dario, it's
Just to touch on the 4 kids, I thought they matched up the 4 kids very well with how they look like in real life. Um, and I just didn't know their ages. I wish they would have told their ages, right? I feel like the only age we kind of knew was Michael, which was the youngest one that she had with Dario. But the other three, you was kind of trying to guess their age because the other two, as actors, they looked a little older than maybe how be. They looked a little older than the age they probably really were. So it would be nice to know like how old the kids actually were when she left Alberto, when you know, when she went to Miami and became bigger. It would like to know their ages as well.
Said that Griselda allegedly paid somebody to have him taken out and have Michael brought back to the States, something which we did see occur in the show. However, Griselda actually denied all claims of that. At the end of the show, we found out that 3 of Griselda's sons, Dixon, Uber, and Ozzy, were all killed. And this is something that was also true and happened in real life. Michael is actually the only child of Griselda that is still alive today.
Ain't that crazy? That is sad AF. You have 4 boys. 4. And only one is left. But it's only sad and it's very unfortunate because at least from the Netflix documentary, Dario wanted better for the kids. You know, he actually tried to get the kids away, and again, he could only do so much for the kids that wasn't his. And again, we didn't know their ages, so they appeared to be grown enough to do what they want to do. But the youngest, at least the 2 youngest, you can tell that he really tried to make a better life for them besides being in the cartel world, right? And just knowing that 3 of them passed away is very sad. Very, very sad. Very sad. But also it's the life that they grew up in, and I feel like that's the life that they only knew.
And he's in his 40s now. The Midland Cartel, which was heavily referenced in this show, which was a part of the Miami drug war, was something which incorporated characters that were named after and based on real people. The likes of Fabio, Rafa, and even John Roberts were people that all actually existed and were involved in the drug war in some capacity. When it came to the arrest of Griselda, that was something which was depicted differently in the show compared to how it happened in reality. Within the show, she was escaping Rafa and was in a motel in Los Angeles, so she feared for her life, when in reality, she was actually arrested in her own home. Within the show, we saw that she had a close relationship with somebody called Rivi, who was her personal hitman.
I'm going to tell you 3 ways I use generative AI powered by Adobe Firefly to make my creative materials even better.
And somebody that was arrested and actually confessed to her requesting him to carry out hits on certain people. This was something which was actually correct. However, the person's name was actually Georgia Ayala, and Rivi was his nickname. Within the show, we saw that Rivi was tasked with killing Chucho because Griselda asked him to, and that was something that occurred in reality as well, actually resulting in the death of Chucho's son, Johnny. As depicted in the show, Ayala drove up the side of the car and missed Chucho and hit his son by accident, as he didn't expect him to be in there. This killing and the many others that were committed resulted in him being sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. One thing which meant that Rivi couldn't be used as a key witness in the case against Griselda Blanco was because of the phone calls that he had with the DA's secretary, where they were involved in sexual conversations. This is something...
This scene right here was so crazy to me, and I was just so shocked that Griselda had that much pull to where people, you know, it's just shocking how much people really be carrying weight, right? And it's how, like, bro, you're in jail and you're still thinking about ways to help Griselda, right? Because if you don't know, like, this scene right here, it helped Griselda's case. At least that's what she was hoping for. At least that was the plan. But also, not even thinking about Griselda, just thinking about the other lady on the other side of the table. Honey, why would you do that on the phone? Like, why would you do that when you know that you're being recorded? Allegedly, she didn't know, right? But still, it's like you're that easily persuaded. It was a shame. I was shocked and shaking my head at the same time because I was like, this is ridiculous. There's no way.
That actually happened in reality. And Rivi did it with not only one person, but 2.
Oh.
When it came to the time of Griselda's conviction, she was sentenced to 15 years for conspiring to manufacture, import, and distribute drugs. And she was sentenced to a further 20 years for the guilty plea that she gave to second-degree murder.
Dang.
With regards to her death, the one sentence that we got at the end kind of summed everything up that happened. Once released from prison in 2004, she was deported back to Colombia, where 8 years later in 2012 she was killed at a butcher's where she was with her daughter-in-law. With regards to June Hawkins and the Syntac unit, that was something which was actually true. June Hawkins was a real detective that worked in the unit and faced the sexist atmosphere that was present in the show. She eventually went on to retire from the force in 2004. The real-life June Hawkins was actually married to somebody else on the force called Al, the person who was alongside her and the individual looking out for her following Raul Diaz leaving. The ending explained. Whilst this show was predominantly focused on Griselda Blanco's hunger to take over Miami and be the godmother of the distribution in the area, what it had a key focus on was the fact that she was doing everything that she was doing for her sons. When you think back to the first episode, she arrived in Miami after killing Alberto and was looking to sell the one brick that she took with the intention of being able to build a better life for them. And it's kind of what happened at the end of the season. After Griselda had risen to the top after putting in the work to get there, she had to essentially let it go. With Marta
To me, it's like she got way too greedy, right? Not that I don't condone any of this, like, just don't do it, because obviously it brings a lifestyle where you're just looking over your shoulder 24/7 and things of that sort, and it's just silly, right? Like, why put your kids in that position? Why put yourself in that position? It's just silly in my opinion, right? But it's like, number one, she started using it, which they tell you that's number one rule, to don't do that, right? And number two, she kept telling herself, this is for my sons, this is for my sons. But everybody around her, Dario, Ravi, I can't remember the guy who was like her accountant, who brought all them women over. He was even telling her, like, you know, you're getting greedy, she's getting cocky, we don't know who she's turned into, it's becoming a scary sight. And Sophia played this role so well that it made me think, like, this is Griselda. Like, this ain't Sophia, this is Griselda, right? But again, it was one of those situations where I think she came too powerful for her own good, and it ended up backfiring on her, which usually what happens to most other dealers. Like, it becomes like your people, you can't trust your people. You can't even trust yourself at this point, right? Like, she was questioning Dario, and Dario was loyal as heck, right? Dario has been loyal as heck since day one. And you can tell it probably would have even gotten down to questioning her own sons. And you can kind of tell from the oldest son, I think it was Dixon, how, sorry if I got his name wrong, but I think it was him, how he was starting to act like his mom, right? And doing things and behaviors that she was carrying on. So I just felt like either way, it was going to be tarnished and it was going to be coming down. Her empire was going to get teared down. But it's just very unfortunate of how it all played out.
Suffering from what looked like some effect from taking too much, Griselda had to flee her home due to Fabio and Rafa most likely not seeing
She was
right
tripping
now,
right there.
and they'd most likely blame Griselda for Marta's death and see it as their opportunity to get Griselda out of the picture, something which it sounded as though they were looking to try and do. So it meant that Griselda was back in a cheap motel with a brick and needing to sell it to make enough cash to get by. Exactly how the season opened, showing that it almost went full circle and there was never going to be a happy ending. With Rafa having his supply tracked to Los Angeles, where she was, we saw that Rafa was on the hunt to find her and was on the cusp of getting his revenge. However, Griselda called the police on herself, which meant that she wouldn't be killed and would at least survive. Again, keeping her children out of the way and out of the potential firing line, which ultimately landed her in the position of being arrested and put behind bars. I touched on what she got charged for and why it ultimately didn't stand in court, but that was also replicated during the ending of the show. The last time period that was present in the show was 7 years later, and we saw that June Hawkins was no longer a detective as she took the desk job that she was initially going to take before getting into the Griselda case, most likely because she realized that she needed to value her family.
Yeah, she was very obsessed with that case, and I think it just went back to her trying to prove a point that women can do this job just as good as a man can. And I think, because if you watch the documentary, she had a son, and it's like she forgot all about her son. She, like, you never saw her reach out to her son or do anything, and it's like the whole case took a toll on her. It's like she had the opportunity to showcase her skills, and then it ended up taking a very big toll on her. And I always wonder about her personal life, if she ever got remarried or anything like that. So I'm glad that he did mention that, because they didn't show it.
was something that we saw she was guilty of not doing. She spent a lot of time on the force and was working cases, so much so that her son was getting left behind. But it seemed like she'd made a choice and had stuck to it. However, the real weight came when Griselda walked into the meeting room and June revealed that Ozzy, Uber, and Dixon, her 3 children, were all killed. Killed because her enemies wanted to give Griselda nothing to live for when she got out of prison, and finally have their way of seeking revenge.
That's crazy.
With the final shot of the show being of Griselda on the beach looking at her kids, we saw them fade away, and the camera drifted further and further back until Griselda was just alone with all of the space around her. It almost implied that everything that she ever did was for nothing. The life that she led, the killings that she committed and was involved in order to gain the power so that her children could live a comfortable and happy life, was the very thing that ended up getting them killed, showing that it was all for nothing. It's a powerful message that they centered the show around. Overall review. I thought this show was pretty good. It served its purpose well and provided an insight into an individual that I wasn't really familiar with. It was brutal and it didn't hold back when it came to showing just how hostile the environment was and the lifestyle was too. I thought it looked really nice. There was a grain to it which made it feel like the 70s and 80s when watching. So I definitely appreciated that. Sofia Vergara actually surprised me in this. I've never seen her in anything other than Modern Family or AGT. And her role in Modern Family is one that doesn't really seem the most difficult to play. But I thought she did a great job with this. It was a really convincing performance and it was so different from how I've ever seen it before. 6 episodes is the perfect amount of time for this show. Anything more and I think it would have definitely been too long. Is it worth the watch? I think it is. It's got good pacing to it and you're constantly on your toes waiting for the carpet to be pulled under Griselda's feet. So, there you have it. Griselda, Netflix versus the real...
Yeah, I agree with him. I think that, first of all, she did an amazing job. I'll say that again. My take on it, I think it was very good. But also, if it was missing certain points in her life, like they said she was married a 3rd time, but we never seen her with that 3rd husband ever. And they said he has a story too with her. And it's like, I wonder why they didn't show that. So yeah, that's interesting. And it was like it said it was something else missing from the documentary that wasn't shown. I can't pinpoint exactly what it is. I can't remember, but it was like a certain piece that was also missing besides her 3rd husband. But other than that, I think the documentary was pretty good. It really gave you a great outlook on how her life was. And again, it's very unfortunate for her kids. That was very sad. And just, she must have really been a beast, like for real, a beast for just how they portrayed her. Like, she had been a beast back in the day. But y'all gotta let me know if y'all watched this Netflix documentary down below. Let me know your thoughts on it, Griselda altogether. If you enjoyed the documentary, if you felt like they could have done a little bit better, etc. Let me know down below. Let me know any other videos like to me do. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and push that notification bell so you know notification I post. With that being said, see you guys next video.